So, Reverend, what I'd like to begin with is first just to ask, in your time in the ministry, have you had an opportunity to talk to anyone about the experience of infertility?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about that experience, how you approached it, what was sort of going on situationally, and why that came to your attention, how that came to your attention?
Sure. The couple was actually coming to me for premarital counseling. And so that came up. It was a couple that were getting married for the first time, but they were an older couple, approaching 50. And so those issues were present. And so the wife, or the bride-to-be at the time, had already gone through some of the process to start in vitro. And they tried soon after. They've tried a couple times soon after they were married, and right before they were married as well. And all of those times were unfortunately unsuccessful. Which of course created some very heavy emotional trauma for the couple. So that's how I was introduced to that.
So when it came up at the time of premarital counseling, did they present it to you as a question that was seeking your guidance in a practical sense, or in the sense of sort of general premarital counseling, how can we approach this as a couple, or in a spiritual sense, or all of the above?
Really all the above.
A
part of our premarital counseling course is we have what we call a Great Expectations worksheet, where we go through every area of married life. Of course, one of them is children. Do you want children, right? Or are there any issues associated with having children, right? To get all of that on the table before they say I do. And so that came up then. So they were really, interestingly enough, the couple would call or text before every appointment that they went to the clinic, and I would pray with them. Pray that that God would give them peace. Pray that the procedure would go well. And pray that God's will would prevail in the situation. And the couple is, particularly the wife, she's what we would consider a strong Christian. And she says that she has peace with it, that it's after every time it's been unsuccessful. But I would imagine, that there is some type of, undercurrent there that needs to be dealt with, because this would be, I believe so far they've tried 3 times. And and she really wants to have children. But she says she has peace, but again, I feel like there might be some undercurrent there that needs to be dealt with. But I'm not going to push it right now.
Sure.
I'll let it come.
Let her bring that.
Right.
Okay. So, praying for her and for God's will to be done as kind of one key way. Were there other things that you advised to her, or that that she has been doing, whether that be study of Scripture, whether that be with her community or some group here within the church, or is she kind of trying to shoulder this on her own, would you suspect?
So it's been a very private matter.
Yes.
I'm not sure even if her parents know.
I see.
So nobody knows really except the couple and me.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I've encouraged her to continue her quiet time. She does that. She prays and reads Scripture. So. Yeah.
Okay. Do you suspect that she keeps it private for any particular reason, or why do you think that is?
Yes. So part of it is probably because, and I did tell them this. And this is all confidential. Correct?
Everything will be anonymized, and that's right. That's right.
So part of it is, some of the advice was, I think you all need to wait until, you all are married to enter into this type of endeavor, for lack of a better word. Yeah. Because at the time that they started to try to get pregnant through in vitro was before they were even engaged.
I see.
And so I'm like, you need to have a little bit more of a structure together, right? Yeah. Before you bring a child into the world. So that was kind of some of the advice that I gave them. What was the other part of your question?
The reasons for her desire for privacy.
The reason, yeah. So some of that was probably that, not wanting to get pregnant before she got married.
Yeah. Okay.
And that stigma that comes with that. And then when it doesn't work, right? Or if the chance that it doesn't work, that not embarrassment, but that public disappointment associated with it, I could imagine would be another traumatic piece. And then, of course, church people, they do mean well, but it can become overwhelming when everybody knows, right? Yeah. Okay. And then, starts asking questions and starts, that type of sensitive information can snowball really quickly. Yeah. So
for that variety of reasons.
Right.
Sure. Okay. In terms of, you had said that this couple was pursuing IVF. Are there any concerns that are held within your church, whether that be in a very doctrine-based way, or in a sort of communal attitude, or in your own heart about in vitro, or any of the other things that someone might get from a doctor to help them to have a baby?
No.
No particular concern.
No particular concern. Again, my only concern was that at the time that they were not married.
Yeah. So that sequence.
Right.
Okay.
That they have a established home first before a child is brought into the world. Yeah. But how that child is brought into the world,
not any point of concern.
It's not a point of concern.
Sure.
We understand that God works through a variety of ways, whether it's natural conception or through in vitro, right? Plenty of I have an older congregation.
Okay.
50% of our congregation is 65 plus.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so I do a lot of hospital visits, right?
Sure.
And so we see God as working through doctors and through the medical practice. And so if this is a way that God can conceive and bring new life into the world, then sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence by providing a good, stable home for the child first.
Sure.
But in terms of using any type of medical procedure.
Yeah. Now, what if that same couple, since you had mentioned that they were a little bit older for having children, if they were to say, you know what, I think that we can do it if only we just use someone else's eggs, right? A donor's eggs, so not our own. Or if we get a surrogate to carry, would that be any different, or you still would feel the same way? That sort of falls within the realm of technology to allow for something good.
I think if the couple came to an understanding, then that's between them, right?
Okay. Yeah.
My only concern would be make sure that they were on the same page, completely, in terms of that. But in terms of us saying that that's not right, or I don't think that that's my place to do that.
Yeah, and that marital discord that maybe kind of at first, well, I think I'm okay with it.
Right.
Before you know it, right? That can be a very different problem that would arise. That's right.
I would encourage them to wait a month or two and see how you feel about it. Right, a month later, and let's make sure that we're both on the same page.
Sure. Now, in terms of just the concept of infertility, and maybe for some it doesn't differ so much from how they conceptualize disease, but for others it does. Would you say that if, in a sense, like what does this mean? If they said, why am I infertile in a celestial sense, right? Why is this the hand that God's given me? How do you conceptualize that, or how would you say that your church would conceptualize that?
We unfortunately in life there are much more questions than there are answers. And I think that would, for me to surmise why a person is infertile, would be theological and pastoral malpractice.
Okay.
That would be engaging in theodicy, right? Asking God why. I don't know why. I can't give you an explanation.
Yeah.
You know, as a matter of fact, we just unfortunately had to at a funeral for a 10-year-old in our congregation who had a very rare form of cancer that only affects pre-adolescent African-American males with the sickle cell trait. And so, of course, there's no treatment for it. Yeah. Unfortunately, he passed away. We funeralized him on Monday. You know, and I told the family there at the funeral, you know, I don't know why. You know, I don't know why God didn't heal him. I don't know why God allowed him to, you know, have this disease. And there is no explanation that I can give. But the only thing that I can assure you is that God's presence is still here, right? And that's the same thing I would say to a couple. I don't know why God, you know, hasn't allowed you to experience this. But God's presence is still with you. You are still a valuable person, right? Your value and identity as a woman is not defined by your ability to conceive, right? And there still is work for you to do. And if you believe that you are called to motherhood, well, then there are other options, right, that you can pursue, right? Whether it be adoption, whether it be mentoring a child, foster care, you know, those types of things. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Now, you know, this week, obviously, Mother's Day is coming. Is that is the thought of, you know, some women in my congregation may really desire, you know, to have a job but find themselves unable to. Is that something that ever kind of comes up into the way that you think about Mother's Day or that you approach Mother's Day at all, or is that something that's you know, kind of a rare enough thing that you don't put a lot of focus on too?
You know, it's because of this couple, and this is a recent case, so this is within the last 3 to 6 months. Okay. It has brought that issue to my awareness. Again, you know, our congregation is 65 plus, so they're not really concerned about having children. But that has come to my attention, right? How to minister to that, right? We do want to celebrate the mothers in our church, right? But at the same time, we want to be sensitive to those who desire that and have been unable to at this point. Yeah. So I will say that is a new concern for me. And I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure how to handle that now. Sure. So.
You know, and you kind of mentioned on this when speaking of, you know, of that boy who had passed, but that concept of, you know, we don't have answers, but we know, you know, about God's love, right? We know about your value as a person, and those things are not changed by, you know, by what, you know, what has happened here. Are there other strategies if, for instance, if this couple does come to you and says, you know what, I've been telling you I'm at peace, but my heart's not quite there. Where else do you direct them? How do you walk through that with them?
So we have a policy here that's in our deacons, or, you know, our deacons and trustees have helped come up with that. That there are some issues that I am not equipped to handle on a long-term basis. Yeah. So, you know, a person gets 3 pastoral care visits, and after that, I'm going to refer you out to a professional to help you work through that. Yeah. Again, I'm not trained or qualified to walk through the fullness of that, but what I can do, of course, as a clergy person, right, is pray and share scripture. But I cannot, and legally, I cannot provide true counseling, right? Yeah. So I refer out.
Gotcha. Sure. So are there resources that are more church-based that you would be referring to, or is it typically to sort of a licensed counselor, social worker, what have you, in the community that's not church affiliated?
Correct.
The latter. Okay.
The license. Yeah.
Okay. Do you? So you had mentioned that there is sort of a legal limitation in terms of what you can and ought to offer, right? And beyond that, to go to someone who has that licensing. Do you think that any focused training or something that comes from sort of a central church organization or a national church organization could become a resource, or do you think that it's most appropriate for really to be sort of at that more mental health counselor focus at that point? Is there a way to kind of keep it within the church, or do you think it's better for it to be in that other setting?
Well, I think that more training for pastors in terms of how to even deal with it when it comes to you, because it will come, right? More training for how pastors should deal with those initial encounters would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
But in terms of a sustained long term, I don't know if it would be even tenable for a local church.
Sure.
To be able to handle that type of ministry.
And particularly if half of your church population is of an age where that's not even going to be an issue, right? You're going to have too few of occasions to support that.
Right.
Sure. In terms of that question of sort of training and preparation for it, during your seminary, during your preparation to be in your role, was this talked about at all? Is this something that was talked about either in sort of a bioethics kind of question, or in a pastoral counseling type of question, or was it something that just kind of you had to figure out for yourself the first time that you encountered it?
Trying to think back to the classes. We had a bioethics. Unfortunately, didn't come up.
Okay.
But we did discuss various issues in our pastoral care class. We did several role plays and stuff like that. But I don't think the issue of infertility ever came up in those role plays.
Okay.
It was more so, people dealing with grief after, the loss, death of a loved one, or marriage issues, aside from infertility.
Right.
But I don't think